It is that time of year, my AKAPADers. It's horror season. It's October. It's the 31 Days of Dread, where we do on this podcast, AKAPAD, the Film Buff Podcast. That's me. We do one horror movie a day for the entire month of October. This year, it's nothing but black and white movies. Let's go. I kept coming back to this cartoon, aka Padders, but hey, it's the 31 Days of Dread. It's the weekend. That means we do cartoons. Now, this year's theme, as you probably already heard, for this year's 31 Days of Dread is black and white only. But that means I don't spread my wings. I also have the 31 Days of Dread extended. This is the obsessive reach of the film buff, where I just can't do one episode a day. I gotta do 2 episodes a day. I gotta talk to you about what's new, what's old, all of it. Now, I am going to apologize a little bit before we get into Betty Boop, Snow White, 1933. It's because not a lot of people make this correlation. And I get frustrated. I get frustrated when I go through some of my history books. As you guys know, I have a large library that I spent my entire lifetime curating. Animation history has always been a subject of mine. I have gone to school for animation, spent time at the Art Institute of Philadelphia. I often talk about how I would spend all my time in the school library. It was in the basement. Right now it's a Ubiclo, but I still shop at Ubiclo, but it used to be the AIPH library basement, and it was awesome. But years go by, so I do my own work. I make my own correlations, and then I double check some of these books to see if I'm correct, if it's true. Do my thoughts hold volume? And I get frustrated when I don't see overlap. So this is the big one. 1933, Betty Boop. The biggest thing in animation. You might say, well, what about Steamboat Willie? What about Mickey Mouse and sound cartoons? Look, Betty Boop, when I was growing up, and I would say going into like the 2000s, there were communities of people that collected only Betty Boop merchandise. Betty Boop lasted until recent history. We're in 2025. Sure, maybe it's been 3 decades since Betty Boop, but we forget too how big of a scene, how big of a moment it was when Betty Boop even showed up in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Betty Boop, Wizard of Oz, Star Trek. These were like the first collectors. So you can't act like Betty Boop wasn't huge. Betty Boop was as big as Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse is just what survived to tell the tale. And overall, Disney and the Walt Disney Company, past, present, and future, throughout Disney's life, post-life, they realized that they could mythicize the creation of Mickey Mouse, and they can keep pushing the idea and the story. So Mickey Mouse and Walt Disney became entwined, and there was a myth. So everything around Betty Boop didn't grow and didn't survive into a multinational conglomerate. But during the day, Betty Boop had spin-off characters, which we've highlighted this year for the 31 Days of Dread. And this overall position of the Fleischer Cartoon Company versus Walt Disney. And why is that important? Well, Betty Boop beat Disney when it comes to the saga of Snow White. But what the two companies do different reveals why Walt Disney ended up on top. And this cartoon reveals all of it. So 1933, we have to say at one time Walt Disney saw this. We have to say at one time Walt Disney envisioned some of this technology that was coming. He envisioned the saga that is far too creepy, weird, and a little bit too abstract. Once Betty Boop gets locked in an ice cube case, and she's carried by the seven dwarfs, and she's being followed by Coco the clown, and we have Bimbo the dog. So we have Betty Boop and her two biggest spin-off characters in this. She gets marched down this like cavern, and it's a cavern of horrors. It's also, and I spoke about this on previous episodes, weird music. But we see a lot later. We would see a lot of like R. Crumb and Bakshi, Ralph Bakshi. These Fleischer cartoons ended up in the LA underground comic book movement. And that's basically where they died. The imagery, I think as a young child, seeing this, growing up as an illustrator, you would have an itch, you would have an inkling to add your spin to some of these wild images. One of the best benefits of this year's 31 Days of Dread, especially the cartoons, is everything I talk to you guys about, you can see right through the internet. There's multiple sites that host. Some of them are even on Wikipedia because they're within the public domain, or they're not truly enforced or disputed. But Walt Disney saw this. He must have. And he said, this is they're robbing us of what this story could be. They're robbing us of what animation could do with Snow White. Let's call it an arms race. So when does Snow White premiere? Well, 1937, 1938. 5 to 4 years. You might say to yourself, Pete, like that's like a lot of time. Like what's the deal? It's like 5 years difference. Even during this time, animation was pipelined. You might want to say maybe Disney sat on it for a year, for 2 years, and got to work on it. Knowing what Disney does with Snow White, and then seeing this, you can clearly see that the full feature color Snow White by Walt Disney is a rebuttal against this, because this has a different intent. Disney says this should be a story that somewhat celebrates life and nature and love. It should celebrate it. Camaraderie, coming through, facing your demons, having courage. Fletcher just set out to do 7 minutes in heaven. 7 minutes short, gets insanely creepy by the end. I mean, I'm looking at some of the images now. Dancing, we have long-legged ghosts. And so the weird thing too is it's like a little bit of just the drawing style, where like the Wicked Witch, right? The ugly, she's drawn as an ugly woman, but it's not cute ugly. It's a little bit creepy ugly. This is a form of ugly I think a child would be a little bit afraid of. And this is what a lot of the cartoons during this time they approached this. This was it was appropriate. So again, too, overall with like theme and idea and direction, you see a rebuttal with the Walt Disney Co., where the cartoons aren't as creepy. They're not as shocking. They're not as hard edged. They're maybe not at the time, but looking back, they're positioned to be timeless. I implore you to check this out, AKAPADers. If you subscribe to Disney Plus, watch the two back to back, the Betty Boop, Snow White 1933, and Walt Disney's Snow White. Now, and then if you want to take it further, I guess watch the live action remake, cause why the hell not? All right, AKA Padders, I love you. Rock and roll.
Roll sound.
Rolling.
Sound production, take 2.
Let's take this time real quick, AKA Padders, my fellow film buffers, and let's just go over the schedule. This is years in the making. This type of rollout I've been planning for years, but we're finally here. So here we go. Early in the morning, that's the new stuff. 8 a.m. Now 8 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. These are movies maybe of something coming out, like if there's a Marvel movie coming out and we want to do a retrospective on that particular franchise, or if Sylvester Stallone comes back and gives us Rocky Part 18, we might want to use the later time slots for a week or two to go over all of the Rocky movies. Now, we have a lot of different threads on this podcast that's explored 8 p.m. So 8 a.m., 8 p.m. Wednesdays at 8 p.m. This is our creator spotlight. We could do an episode on Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, some of the new guys, Spike Lee, even composers, guys like John Williams. This brings us into the weekend. Saturday, Sunday morning. Again, we're back at that 8 a.m. drop. We do cartoons because I want to emulate the times where you would wake up with a bowl of cereal and watch cartoons all day Saturday and all day Sunday, and then eventually you would get to touch grass because you would have one of your friends knocking on your door to play in a touch football game or even some baseball, basketball. The weekend nights, let's get into education. 8 p.m. Again, all of our drops are either 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. But the weekend nights, documentaries, and I focus on creative documentaries because I feel like a part of this film buff movement that we're all bathing in, that I'm super grateful for, is education. And some of where we're finding our facts, some of the general enjoyment, because I love documentaries, all of this is explored at 8 o'clock p.m. And trust me, there's a lot there. There's a lot out there that I didn't even know existed. And we're going to go beyond that too. We're going to get into some of the graphic art, some of the special effects, some of the makeup documentaries. There's a lot to learn, and I'm so happy to bring you the 9 p.m. because you guys know I'm an autodidact. I am self-educated. Sure, I have some certifications. Sure, I spent time at the Art Institute of Philadelphia for animation. But in large, I'm a self-educated, self-made person that's connected to the weekend 8 p.m. drops. My AKA Padders, my film buffers, I hope to see you there for all of it. I love you guys, and rock and roll.
Okay, that's a wrap.